As the sport of triathlon grows, as do the number of bikes that are available to us. So when it comes to choosing a new bike, the correct bike for yourself, it can be a really tough task. We have entry-level bikes, mid-range bikes, and high-end bikes. But actually, what is the difference between them all? What do you actually get for that extra bit of cash? And perhaps could you get away with an entry-level bike for your current needs? And so on. There are so many questions like that we hear time and time again. And to help us answer those questions, we have come out to Germany to the factory of our new partners, Canyon. Over the last decade, their bikes have evolved and conquered a heck of a lot in their time. And with that, they've created a large range of different level and models of bikes. So using their bikes as an example, we're going to run through the differences between their entry level, their mid-range, and their high-end bikes to hopefully help you when it comes to choosing a new bike. Before we delve into the latest and the modern bikes, I thought it's worth us taking a little trip down memory lane. Well, 10 years down memory lane. See, as with most bike brands, as the designs and the technologies change that go into the bikes, we see this trickle down of the technologies from the top end bikes down to their new entry level bikes. So right here now, I have the whole generation and evolution of the Canyon Speedmax. See, as we're buying our new bikes, our entry, our mid and our high-end bikes, it's important to know the technology that's gone into them and where that's come from. So first of all, I'm going to take a look at the Canyon Speedmax first generation bike. Right, so to help me through the history and the technologies that have gone into these bikes, I've brought in the design engineer for Canyon, Wolfgang. So thanks for joining me today, Wolfgang. And right here now I have two of the Canyon Speedmaxes from the first generation, the aluminium and the carbon. So when were these actually available to purchase?
I think both of the bikes were available from 2009 to 2013.
Okay, so obviously the aluminium was the low end, the carbon was the high end. So what have we got going on in terms of technology here?
We did not have CFD analyze at this time. We did not go to the wind tunnel of this time. And yeah, it was more or less a theoretical art of science.
Okay, so I do notice here on the aluminium we've got external cable routing, we've got the brakes exposed on both of the models. We've got non-integrated handlebars, standard stems. So actually quite dated compared to the bikes that we see nowadays. But obviously the top end riders were using these bikes at the time. But now let's move on and take a look at the second generation Canyon Speedmax. Well, this is quite an exciting era. I can see that by just looking at these bikes. So what is going on here?
This was the first 3D printed wind tunnel prototype we produced at Canyon.
Right, so what date are we looking at for this bike and the prototype?
The bike was sold from 2013 to 16.
Okay, so I can see here where obviously it was a 3D printed prototype. You've also got like a puzzle piece for separate parts. So you've obviously swapped out the down tube, the rear stays to really optimize those aerodynamics. And then this is the finished article, which is, well, this is Joachim Rodriguez's bike. This has been ridden by pro cyclists and triathletes.
Yeah, but the focus at this time was the UCI circus. It was possible to adapt for triathletes, but focus was UCI.
Yeah, so I can see it's obviously somewhat limited in terms of its storage and storage integration and presumably its geometry, which is where I think it's really interesting for us now to take a look at the third generation of the Speedmax. Well, now we are bringing it up to date now. This is the third generation of the Speedmax and considerably different from the second generation and certainly the first generation. So what have we actually got going on here?
Nowadays the focus is completely on triathlon, so we wanted to provide our customers the best possible material for their perfect bike split.
Brilliant, so it's just all integrated. We've got a hydration system here which has a straw coming out of, so you can stay in your aero position whilst you fuel and take on your hydration. You can fill that hydration system up on the go. We've also got storage here for the gels. We've got another storage compartment here which you can put your spares in, race day spares. You've got tube there, you can put your CO2 canister in there. It really is quite impressive. This is actually Patrick Langer's Ironman World Championship winning bike, and then this is the production model. Now this has been really interesting looking at the evolution of the bike and how the technology has changed over the years, which is really important when we now go to take a look at our entry-level bike. But I'm currently riding a new and modern entry-level triathlon bike, but this is where things get interesting, because if we remember back to that evolution of the Speedmax, where technology and science has developed over the years and it's advanced, what we're seeing is that these entry-level triathlon bikes are more aerodynamic, they're faster, and most importantly, they're better designed and developed for triathletes with in mind. So they're actually better than those high-end bikes that pros have been riding on over the last decade. In essence, what I'm trying to say is that most brands are now producing entry-level bikes that are competitive with, if not better, than those high-end bikes from just a few years ago. What we're seeing is this trickle-down effect of the technology and science from those older high-end bikes through to the new entry-level bikes. Now for this video, we are specifically focusing on triathlon bikes as opposed to road bikes that are then adapted and modified to take part in triathlon. So with that in mind, triathlon bikes do tend to start at a slightly higher price tag than your standard entry road bikes, but this is still an entry triathlon bike. I have also picked out 3 different bikes from the Canyon range to use as examples. So we've got an entry bike, a mid-range bike, and a high-end bike. And I've tried to pick them so they match up and reflect similarly with other brands. So first of all, let's take a closer look at this entry-level bike as an example. And with these advances in technology that I've been talking about, we're now seeing entry-level bikes with carbon fiber frames. We've also got internal cabling, so all these cables come from the brakes and the gears are coming through the frame, they're hidden from the wind and more aerodynamic. You then also notice that we have the brakes here that are exposed. Now these are almost set up like your standard road bike, and there are advantages to that and disadvantages. The disadvantages being it's not quite as aerodynamic. The advantages being, well, if you're a relative newbie to triathlon, or maybe you're not quite so confident with your bike mechanics, then these are really easy to maintain. Then our gearing, well, an entry-level bike you'll tend to see having mechanical group sets. So I've got Shimano 105 on here. That means I have mechanical shifting on the end of the aero bars. Does mean that I don't have shifting on the base bar, which might be a limiting factor to some. And finally, the wheel set. Now you'll notice here we've got fairly shallow and standard set of alloy wheels, which for some people might be absolutely fine for racing on with your entry-level triathlon bike. But for other people, you might consider these more as a set of training wheels, in which case you can then pop in your own wheels. It might allow you to go away and choose your own race wheels that you prefer, or you might have your own set already sat in your garage ready to throw in. Well, now let's compare that to a mid-range bike like this one that I'm riding here. Now this sits firmly between the entry-level price and the high-end price range, and you're getting quite an obvious upgrade. Now it is fairly similar frame set in this instance, but what I'm getting is the componentry upgrades. So I've got a group set that's now electronic. So I've got Shimano Ultegra electronic group set. So I've got precise shifting from both the end of the aero bars and now also the base bar, which is a really nice addition. I've also got quite an obvious upgrade, and that is with the wheel set. So I've got a really nice looking set of wheels now. I've got a Zip 404 front wheel and a Zip 808 rear wheel. So you're really buying kind of an off-the-shelf race-ready bike. But now let's move on to the high-end triathlon bikes, and understandably, they do have a price tag to reflect that. So this is mainly aimed at those athletes that are looking to fine-tune their performance, to improve their aerodynamics, and literally leave no stone unturned. Or perhaps it's even for those that just fancy treating themselves. Either way, this bike should be spec'd out to the max. So with any good bike brand that's doing triathlon bikes, you should see a lot more integration in these high-end bikes. So this bike, for instance, I've got a hydration system and storage box all integrated into the cockpit. So it's actually creating almost a fairing that in theory should be faster than without it. And then in terms of the group set, you might actually be lucky enough to have an upgrade on this from the mid-range as well. So whereas we had an Ultegra electronic group set before, now you might find you have Dura Ace electronic. And then of course, the wheels. We're still gonna have a nice set of race wheels with a bike like this. So it really is race day ready. And the nice thing with this is having a top-end, high-spec bike, you know that you're riding more or less the same, if not the same, as the pros are. But there we go, that is a little comparison between the entry, the mid, and the high-end triathlon bikes that are on offer to us today. And it's actually been really interesting looking at this whole evolution and how the designs and the technology have changed quite considerably over the last 10 years, and how that in turn has influenced the different levels of bikes that are on offer to us today. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more videos from GTN, just click on the globe and subscribe. If you'd like to see our other Canyon video where I get my Canyon Speedmax that I'm sat on right here, you can click just down here.